The smell of antiseptic and burnt coffee clung to my scrubs as I pushed through the hospital's revolving doors into the bitter Chicago night. December 24th, 11:47 p.m. Another Christmas Eve spent wrestling death in the ER while other families gathered around glowing trees. My shoulders ached from 12 hours of compressions, intubations, and the weight of decisions that couldn't wait for morning. Snow crunched under my boots as I fumbled for my keys, breath-forming white clouds in the frozen air. The parking garage lights flickered overhead, casting everything in that sickly yellow glow that made even healthy people look jaundiced. All I wanted was to collapse into bed and sleep through what remained of the holiday. But when I finally made it home, trudging up the salted steps to our townhouse in Lincoln Park, I saw something that stopped me cold. Emma's snow boots, the ones with the ridiculous pink fur trim she'd begged for last month, sat neatly by the door. Her car keys hung on the hook where she always left them when she was trying to be responsible. My 16-year-old daughter was supposed to be at my parents' house in Naperville enjoying their traditional Christmas Eve sleepover. She'd been so excited about driving herself this year, her first holiday with a license. She'd left at 4 o'clock sharp, allowing extra time for traffic and weather, proud of her newfound independence. The living room was dark, except for the glow from the streetlights filtering through the blinds. I found her on the couch, knees pulled to her chest, still wearing the red sweater she'd chosen specifically because Grandma always complimented her in red. Her overnight bag sat unopened by her feet. "Em," I whispered. Her eyes opened immediately, that particular alertness of someone who'd been pretending to sleep. "Hey, Mom, what are you doing here, honey?" She sat up slowly, tucking a strand of blonde hair behind her ear. "They said there wasn't room." I blinked, certain I'd misheard. "Room where?" "At the table." Her voice cracked on the last word, and she swallowed hard. "Grandma said they weren't expecting me, that they already had too many people and couldn't just add another chair at the last minute. But you were invited weeks ago. We confirmed Tuesday." Emma shrugged, trying for casual and failing miserably. She opened the door and looked at me like I was a door-to-door salesman, said the table was full and all the beds were taken, that she didn't want me driving back late, but also didn't know where to put me. She laughed, a brittle sound. "So I left." "Did anyone offer to drive you home, make sure you got here safely?" "No." The word came out flat, final. Aunt Lisa was in my usual seat. Grandpa was showing her pictures on his phone. No one even looked up when I left. My gaze fell to the coffee table where a paper plate held a single piece of wheat toast, edges curled from the toaster's heat. Half a bruised banana lay beside it, brown spots spreading across the peel. "That's what you had for Christmas dinner." "I wasn't really hungry," she mumbled, but her eyes were filling now despite her best efforts. She blinked hard, bit her lower lip. I felt like I was intruding, like showing up was rude somehow. The tears came, then silent and steady. "I brought homemade sugar cookies," she whispered. "The ones with the green frosting that Grandma says she loves. I thought I was family." I sat down and pulled her close. She folded into me without hesitation, her shoulders shaking with the effort of keeping her sobs quiet. We stayed like that for a long time, her tears soaking through my scrub top, while snow began to fall outside, muffling the sounds of the city. "I know they don't like you," she said, finally, voice muffled against my shoulder. "But I didn't think you thought you were just the kid I finished, not part of their issues with me." She nodded. They didn't even say it mean, just practical, like I was an unexpected delivery they had to refuse. After Emma finally fell asleep, I sat at our kitchen table staring at her carefully packed overnight bag. She'd folded everything so neatly, the pajamas with little reindeer on them, the fuzzy socks, the small wrapped presents for her younger cousins. A tin of cookies sat on top, "Merry Christmas," written in her careful handwriting on the label. 28 people. That's what she'd said. 28 people had fit around my parents' table and throughout their house, but not their own granddaughter. I opened my laptop and began typing. I don't remember exactly when my family decided I was the problem child. Maybe it was when I brought home a microscope kit in 3rd grade and spent recess looking at pond water instead of playing tag. Or when I asked the science teacher if I could stay after school to help clean the lab equipment because I genuinely enjoyed organizing the beakers by size. My mother, Patricia, would purse her lips whenever parent-teacher conferences rolled around. "She's just so intense," teachers would say, meaning it as a compliment. Mom heard it as an indictment. My sister Lisa basked in being average C's across the board, popular enough to have friends, but not enough to cause drama. She was easy. I was difficult. "Why can't you just be normal?" became the family refrain, usually accompanied by eye rolls when I mentioned wanting to be a doctor. In our blue-collar neighborhood in Cicero, where most kids aimed for trade school or community college, at best, my ambitions were treated like delusions of grandeur. Dad Frank, to everyone, even me after I turned 12, made it clear early on that smarts didn't mean shit in the real world. He'd come home from his warehouse job, crack open a Budweiser, and launch into his nightly sermon about how college was a scam and real work meant using your hands. When I got into Northwestern on a full scholarship, he asked if I was pregnant. When I said no, he asked if I was a lesbian. When I said no to that too, he just shrugged and went back to his beer. Must have been a diversity quota thing, he muttered to the TV. They never gave me a dime for school. Not that I expected it, they'd made their position clear. So I waited tables at a 24-hour diner near campus, pulled double shifts on weekends, studied in the break room between rushes. My feet would bleed through my shoes, and I'd tape them up and keep going. Once I fell asleep, standing up during a particularly brutal Sunday brunch, and dropped an entire tray of mimosas. The manager docked my pay and made me clean it up, while customers complained about the wait. Lisa, meanwhile, had gotten pregnant at 19 and moved back home with her daughter Lily. She became the family hero, young mom making it work, so brave, so strong. Never mind that I was the one who paid for Lily's formula when Lisa's retail job didn't cover everything. Or that I tutored Lily in math over FaceTime while studying for my boards because Lisa wasn't good with numbers. The asks started small after I finished residency. Could I help with Dad's dental work? His union insurance had lapsed and the infection was getting bad. Could I cover Mom's blood pressure medication just this month while they sorted out the Medicare paperwork? Could I co-sign Lisa's car loan? She needed reliable transportation for Lily. I did it all without question. Family helps family, right? The house came later. They'd been evicted from their apartment, something about missed payments and a vindictive landlord, though the story changed depending on who told it. They were in their late 50s, too young for most senior housing, too broke for anything decent. So I bought a house. Nothing fancy, a 3-bedroom ranch in Naperville with a finished basement and a yard big enough for Dad's grill. I put it in my name for tax purposes, but told them it was theirs. Home finally. Security. The mortgage was $2,400 a month. I covered it. The property taxes, the insurance, the maintenance, all me. When the furnace died during the polar vortex of 2019, I paid for the emergency replacement. When the roof needed repairs after a summer storm, I handled it. They never asked how much anything cost. They never offered to contribute. After a while, I stopped expecting them to. But it was Thanksgiving when things started to crack. Lisa called breathless with excitement. Lily had been accepted into a prestigious STEM program at the University of Chicago, 2 weeks intensive study, college credits included. She's got your brain, Lisa gushed. This could change everything for her. That's wonderful, I said, genuinely happy for my niece. How much is it? $8,000. But Kate, it's the opportunity of a lifetime. And you know we can't. She didn't have to finish. I knew they couldn't afford it. Lisa worked retail. Her ex paid child support sporadically at best. I'm sorry, I said carefully. I wish I could help, but with the mortgage and everything else. Everything else. Her voice turned sharp. You mean your fancy house? Your Tesla? Must be nice to have everything and still be too cheap to help family. Lisa? I pay Mom and Dad's entire Lily looks up to you, you know. But I guess you only care about yourself, just like always. She hung up before I could respond. The family freeze began immediately. Mom's weekly calls stopped. Dad's texts about Bears games disappeared. When I reached out, I got one-word responses or nothing at all. Lisa posted passive-aggressive memes on Facebook about family who forgets where they came from and when money matters more than blood. I kept paying their bills. Even in their silence, even in their judgment, I kept the lights on and the roof over their heads. Because that's what you do. That's what family does. Until they showed my daughter what family really meant to them. Now I sat in my kitchen at 3 a.m. on Christmas morning staring at the mortgage statement. $2,400 a month for 7 years. Over $200,000 invested in a house where my daughter wasn't welcome. Where 28 people could gather, including neighbors and cousins I'd never met but not Emma. I opened my laptop and began making a list. Electric bill canceled, gas bill canceled, internet and cable canceled, automatic transfers for property taxes canceled, home insurance removed from my policy. One by one, I severed every financial tie that bound me to that house to them. My phone buzzed. Richard, my husband, texting from his overnight shift. Everything okay? Emma get there safe? I stared at the screen for a long moment before typing back, she's home. They turned her away. Said there was no room. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then I'll be home as soon as I can. I closed the laptop and walked to the window. Snow was falling harder now, blanketing our street in pristine white. Somewhere across the city, my parents were sleeping off their Christmas Eve celebration, warm and comfortable in the house I'd provided, surrounded by everyone except the granddaughter they deemed expendable. By the time the sun rose on Christmas morning, they'd discover what it really meant to have no room at the table. Richard came home just after sunrise, still in his scrub snow, in his dark hair. He found me at the kitchen table, surrounded by printed bank statements and utility confirmations. His eyes took in the scene, the papers, my exhausted face, Emma's cold toast still on the counter, and he understood without me saying a word. Coffee, he asked quietly. Please. He moved around our kitchen with the practiced efficiency of someone used to working nights grinding beans and heating water while I organized my documentation into neat piles. Proof of payment, proof of ownership, proof of years of unacknowledged sacrifice. How's Em? He asked, sliding a mug across the table. Asleep, finally. I wrapped my hands around the ceramic, letting the warmth seep into my fingers. She tried so hard not to cry. Richard sat down across from me, his green eyes steady and calm, the same look he got when dealing with critical patients. What's the plan? Eviction notice goes out Monday. 60 days per Illinois law. He nodded slowly. They'll fight it. Let them. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the snow fall past our window. Outside, Chicago was waking up to Christmas morning, children squealing over presents, families gathering for breakfast, the eternal rhythms of a holiday that had lost its meaning in our house. You know what the worst part is, I said finally. She made cookies, spent 3 hours decorating them, making sure each one was perfect because Grandma likes the green frosting best. Richard reached across the table and took my hand. They made their choice. 28 people, I whispered. They made room for 28 people. My phone started buzzing at 7:47 a.m. Mom, I let it go to voicemail. It buzzed again immediately. Dad this time, then Lisa. Then numbers I didn't recognize, probably calling from other people's phones when I didn't answer. By 8:15, the text started rolling in. Mom, what did you do to the power? Frank's trying to make coffee and nothing works. Dad, very mature. Catherine, punishing us on Christmas. Your mother is in tears. Lisa, are you seriously this petty? Lily's here and the heat won't turn on. I turned my phone face down and went to make breakfast. Emma deserved at least one normal Christmas moment, even if I had to manufacture it from scratch. She came downstairs around 9, hair messy, eyes still puffy from crying. She'd changed into pajamas, not the reindeer ones she'd packed for Grandma's, but an old pair covered in chemistry puns that Richard had bought her last year. Merry Christmas, sweetheart, I said, sliding a plate of pancakes across the counter. She managed a small smile. You made snowman shapes, with chocolate chip buttons, just like when you were little. We ate in companionable quiet, the elephant in the room politely ignored. Richard joined us, having showered and changed into jeans and a sweater. He'd even put on the ridiculous Christmas tie Emma had bought him, the one with light-up reindeer noses. Present time, he suggested gently. We gathered in the living room, our small tree glowing in the corner. I'd barely noticed it yesterday, too, focused on work to appreciate Emma's careful decorating. She'd used all the ornaments from when she was little, popsicle stick angels, clay handprints, school photos in glittery frames. We took turns opening gifts, maintaining the illusion of normalcy. Books for Emma, who shared my love of reading. A new stethoscope for Richard engraved with his initials. They'd pooled their money to get me a spa day package because you never relax, Mom. Halfway through, my phone rang again. This time it was Aunt Helen, Mom's sister. I almost ignored it, but Helen had always been the reasonable one. Kate, honey, what's going on? Your mother just called me hysterical, saying you cut off their electricity on Christmas. I stepped into the kitchen for privacy. Did she mention they turned Emma away last night? Told her there was no room at their table. Silence. Then she, 28 people at their house, Aunt Helen, including neighbors, but not their granddaughter. She drove herself there, excited to spend Christmas Eve with family, and they sent her home to an empty house. Oh, Kate, I had no idea. Of course you didn't, because they're not going to tell that part. Just like they won't mention I've been paying their mortgage for 7 years. Another pause. You've been... Kate, They told everyone they bought that house. I laughed sharp and bitter. With what money Dad's been on disability for 3 years and Mom's retail pension barely covers groceries. I need to go, Helen said quietly. But Kate, you did the right thing, that poor girl. By noon, the family phone tree had activated. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years were suddenly deeply concerned about holiday traditions and family unity. My phone buzzed with their judgment. This seems extreme, Kate. It's Christmas. Your parents are elderly. Have some compassion. Lisa says you're jealous of Lily's success. Don't take it out on everyone. I crafted one response and copied it to everyone. They had room for 28 people, but not my daughter. I have room in my life for people who treat her with kindness. Merry Christmas. Then I blocked them all. Around 2 o'clock, there was a knock at the door. I looked through the peephole to see Mom standing on our porch still in her housecoat despite the cold. Her face was blotchy hair uncombed. Dad sat in their car engine running, glaring at our house like it had personally offended him. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. "How dare you?" she hissed, voice low and venomous, cutting everything off without warning. "On Christmas, your father's blood sugar dropped because he couldn't make breakfast, and the house is freezing." "There's a McDonald's on Route 59, I said calmly, "and several hotels if the house is too cold." Her face went from red to purple. "We're your parents and Emma's your granddaughter. Didn't stop you from turning her away. That's different. We didn't have space." "You had space for the Johnsons from 2 blocks over. You had space for Lisa's book club friend. You had space for cousins I've never even met. You chose who to make space for, and it wasn't her." She sputtered, searching for words. "This is about money, isn't it about Lily's program? You've always been selfish with your success. Get off my porch. Catherine Marie, get off my porch." She stood there, mouth opening and closing like a fish before turning on her heel and storming back to the car. Dad peeled out of our driveway, tires spinning on the ice, middle finger extended out the driver's side window. "Merry Christmas to you too," I thought. Emma was in the living room when I came back inside, curled up with a book, but clearly having heard everything. "You okay, Mom?" I sat down beside her, pulling her close. "Are you?" She leaned into me, quiet for a moment. "It's weird. I'm sad, but also relieved, like I've been trying so hard to make them love me, and now I can just stop." "Oh, sweetheart." I kissed the top of her head. "Their inability to love you says nothing about you and everything about them." "I know," she said softly. "It still sucks, though." "Yeah, it really does." We spent the rest of Christmas in our pajamas, watching movies and eating cookies from the tin Emma had made for them. Richard ordered Chinese food for dinner, our new tradition, he declared. No more trying to fit into spaces that weren't made for us. That night, I found the eviction notice I'd prepared and signed it with steady hands. 60 days. That's all the time they had left in the house I'd bought, maintained, and foolishly believed made us family. They'd chosen who had a seat at their table. Now I was choosing too. The social media assault began 3 days after Christmas. Lisa fired the first shot, a Facebook post dripping with manufactured grief. Some people forget where they came from the moment they get a little success. Watching my parents suffer because their own daughter values money over family, it breaks my heart. Praying for healing in our family. 300 reactions, 87 comments, 15 shares. I saw it while sitting in the hospital break room between rounds. Dr. Patel glanced over my shoulder, saw my face, and wordlessly slid her coffee my way. Family, something like that. The post had activated every distant relative and family friend on the internet. People who hadn't spoken to me in decades suddenly had strong opinions about my character. "This is so sad, Lisa. Your parents are such good people. Money changes people. Praying for your sister to find her heart again." I always knew Kate thought she was better than everyone. Remember how she acted at Tom's wedding, 5 years ago, where I'd quietly paid for the open bar when my cousin couldn't afford it and spent the reception holding Lisa's hair while she threw up in the bathroom from too many Long Island iced teas. But sure, let's talk about how I acted. By evening, Mom had joined the campaign with her own contribution, a badly lit selfie of her and Dad looking forlorn, captioned, "When your own child abandons you at Christmas." We gave her everything, and this is how she repays us. Heartbroken doesn't begin to describe it. The comments were a masterclass in enabling Patricia. "You don't deserve this. What kind of daughter does this to her parents? She'll regret this when you're gone. So sad." Richard found me on the couch at midnight, laptop open, scrolling through the digital assassination of my character. He gently closed the screen. Stop torturing yourself. They're telling everyone I cut them off for no reason, that I'm punishing them because I'm jealous of Lisa. And I looked at him. And what? And why do you care what these people think? When's the last time any of them called to check on you? Visited, sent Emma a birthday card. He was right, of course, but logic didn't make it sting less. The next morning, I woke to 17 text messages from various relatives. Most were variations on a theme, how could you do this? They're your parents. Family is everything. You'll regret this. One cousin actually had the audacity to ask if I was having a mental breakdown and needed psychiatric help. I was composing a response when Emma knocked on my door. Mom, you should see this. She handed me her phone Instagram open. Lisa had posted a photo of Lily at our old family Christmas dinner sitting in what had always been Emma's spot. The caption, so grateful for family who shows up. #blessed#. Family first. The rage that flooded through me was volcanic. Not for myself, I'd long accepted my place on the family's margins. But using her own niece's exclusion as a weapon, posting from the very table where they'd told Emma there was no room. Are you okay? I asked Emma. She took her phone back, studied the image. You know what? Yeah, because now I know it was never about space, it was about me. I pulled her into a hug. Their loss, baby, their loss. But the campaign was just warming up. Over the next week, the narrative solidified. I was the successful daughter who'd abandoned her struggling parents out of greed and jealousy. They conveniently omitted 7 years of mortgage payments, utility bills, medical expenses, and emergency repairs. They certainly didn't mention turning away a 16-year-old on Christmas Eve. Mom started calling extended family with tearful updates. We might be homeless, she told anyone who'd listen. Our own daughter is evicting us. In winter, we don't know what we did wrong. What they did wrong. As if it were some mystery. As if I hadn't been crystal clear. The eviction notice was delivered on a Tuesday. Professional process server, legal documentation, everything by the book. I wasn't taking any chances on procedural errors. The explosion was immediate. Dad called from 3 different numbers before I could block them all, leaving increasingly unhinged voicemails. You think you're so smart with your doctor money and your fancy lawyer? We'll fight this. We'll tell everyone what kind of person you really are. You're no daughter of mine. Lisa texted a screenshot of the notice with just 3 words. Really, really wow. Mom went for emotional warfare, sending a long, rambling email about how she'd nearly died giving birth to me, how they'd sacrificed everything for my education, a fascinating revision of history, how I was breaking her heart and probably killing her with the stress. I forwarded everything to my lawyer. Document everything he'd advised. Let them create the evidence against themselves. The relatives group text that I'd forgotten I was part of became a tribunal. Cousin Mark, Kate, this is insane. You're evicting them over what, Aunt Helen? Everyone calm down. There's more to this story. Uncle Pete, more to the story. She's throwing her parents out in winter. Cousin Sarah, maybe, if they hadn't turned Emma away on Christmas. The chat exploded. Wait, what Emma? What happened with Emma? I watched the messages roll in saying nothing. Sarah had been at the dinner. She'd seen Emma turned away. Now she was speaking up. Sarah. They told Emma there was no room. 28 people there, but no room for her. She had to drive home alone on Christmas Eve. The momentum shifted slightly. Mark, that's... Wait, seriously, Sarah, I was there. Felt sick about it, but didn't know what to say. Kid brought cookies and everything. Uncle Pete still doesn't justify eviction. I finally typed 7 years of paying their mortgage doesn't justify inclusion of my daughter at Christmas dinner. We all make choices. Then I left the group. But the smear campaign had one more card to play. Mom, in a stroke of vindictive genius, called my hospital. Not to reach me, she knew I wouldn't take her call, but to file a complaint with patient services about my mental instability and concerning behavior. I was called into my director's office on a Thursday afternoon. Dr. Morrison, a woman I'd worked under for 5 years, looked deeply uncomfortable. Kate, I need to ask you some awkward questions. A complaint has been filed suggesting you might be experiencing some personal difficulties that could affect patient care. I sat very still. By Patricia Morrison, my mother. You know, I can't. She stopped, sighed. Yes. Your mother expressed concerns about erratic behavior and decision-making. I see. I pulled out my phone, scrolled to the screenshots I'd been saving. Would you like to see the social media posts where she's been publicly lying about our situation? Or the eviction notice for the house I've been paying for? Or perhaps the messages about how my 16-year-old daughter was turned away from their Christmas dinner? Dr. Morrison's expression shifted from uncomfortable to angry, not at me, I realized. At them. Email me everything, she said quietly. This complaint will be dismissed as the malicious nonsense it clearly is. And Kate, I'm sorry you're dealing with this. I stood to leave, then paused. She actually called my workplace, tried to get me in trouble professionally because I won't subsidize their life anymore. Some people, Dr. Morrison said carefully, shouldn't be parents. Walking back to my office, I felt something shift inside me. The last tiny thread of obligation of maybe I'm being too harsh snapped clean. They wanted a war, they'd started one, but I was going to finish it. I'd been documenting everything for 7 years without really knowing why. Maybe some part of me always knew this day would come. Every mortgage payment, every utility bill, every repair receipt, all scanned and filed in a folder labeled House Expenses. Digital and physical copies, because I'd learned early in medical school that redundancy saved lives. Now sitting at my dining room table on a cold January evening, I laid it all out like evidence in a case, which I supposed it was. $201,600 in mortgage payments, $23,847 in utility bills, $18,432 in property taxes, $14,756 in repairs and maintenance, $8,934 in insurance premiums, total $267,569, $250,000 over 7 years. And that didn't include the medical bills, the grocery runs when Dad's disability check came up short, the loans that were never repaid. Emma sat across from me helping organize receipts. She'd insisted on being part of this, saying she wanted to understand the full picture. Richard worked beside her, creating a spreadsheet that broke everything down by month and year. Mom, Emma said quietly, looking at a receipt for a new water heater. This is from my birthday 2 years ago. You said you couldn't come to my school play because of an emergency surgery? I remembered that night. Emma as Lady Macbeth, fierce and brilliant on stage. I'd missed it because Dad called hysterical about the water heater bursting and flooding the basement. I'd rushed to handle it, arrange repairs, deal with insurance. Spent my daughter's birthday mopping up water and arguing with contractors. I'm sorry, baby, I said. Don't be sorry. Be angry. They knew it was my birthday. Richard looked up from his laptop. You want to post all this, not all of it. Just enough. I wasn't interested in matching their hysteria on social media. I wouldn't air every piece of dirty laundry or stoop to their level of manipulation. But I was done being silent while they rewrote history. I crafted the post carefully, clinically. No emotion, just facts. Since there seems to be confusion about recent family events, I'd like to clarify a few points. 1. On Christmas Eve, my 16-year-old daughter drove herself to my parents' home for their traditional family gathering. She was told there was no room for her despite 28 people being present, including neighbors and distant relatives. 2. For the past 7 years, I have paid the full mortgage on my parents' home, $2,400 a month, along with utilities, taxes, insurance, and repairs. This information can be verified through public records. 3. The current eviction proceedings are legal and valid. The house is in my name, as are all associated financial obligations. 4. I share this not for sympathy, but for accuracy. Family relationships are complex, but facts are not. I wish everyone peace and clarity in the new year. Attached were 3 images: the mortgage statement showing my name and payment history, a property tax bill, and a screenshot of December's utility bills, all with my name as the account holder. I hit post at 8:47 p.m. By 9:15, my phone was vibrating off the table. The first wave came from people I actually knew, coworkers, college friends, Emma's friends' parents who followed me. Shock mostly, support definitely. Several private messages saying variations of "I had no idea" and "good for you." But the real tsunami came when cousin Sarah shared it. Then Aunt Helen. Then surprisingly one of Mom's church friends who'd been at the Christmas dinner. The church friend Margaret commented, "I was there Christmas Eve. I wondered where Emma was." Patricia said she had other plans. I feel sick knowing the truth. The floodgates opened. Wait, they don't own that house, $2,400 a month for 7 years. They turned away a 16-year-old on Christmas. I'm sorry, but who fits 28 people? But not their granddaughter Sarah added her own comment. I was there. Can confirm Emma was turned away. I've felt guilty ever since for not speaking up. She brought homemade cookies and everything. Mom tried damage control, commenting, This is a private family matter that shouldn't be on social media. Very disappointed in your need for attention, Catherine. Someone I didn't even know responded, "Ma'am, you put it on social media first. Your daughter just brought receipts." The tide turned fast. People started sharing their own stories in the comments. "Pat borrowed $500 from me 3 years ago. Said they were broke. Guess I know where their house payment was coming from." Frank told everyone at the VFW he bought that house cash from his retirement. We all wondered how on his pension. They hosted that huge 50th anniversary party last year. Bragged about their house constantly. This is wild. Lisa tried next posting her own response. "My sister is twisting things for sympathy. One misunderstanding about dinner arrangements and she goes nuclear. Some people can't handle family conflict maturely." But it was too late. The narrative had shifted. The evidence was too clear, the contrast too stark. They'd told everyone they were victims of their cruel, successful daughter. But the paper trail told a different story. The killing blow came from an unexpected source, Dad's own brother, Uncle Mike, who'd been estranged from the family for years. "Not surprised," he wrote. "Frank's been taking advantage of people his whole life. Borrowed $10K from our mom before she died, never paid it back. Claimed he needed it for house repairs. Guess we know which house now." By morning, the post had been shared 47 times. Mom and Dad's phones were apparently ringing nonstop, not with sympathy anymore, but with questions. Demands for explanations. Church friends wondering if all those fundraisers they'd contributed to had been necessary when their daughter was covering everything. Emma found me in the kitchen at sunrise making coffee. "You okay, Mom? You know what I actually am." "Good." She poured herself juice, then paused. "Lily texted me last night." My stomach tensed. "And she said she's sorry, that she didn't know about Christmas Eve until she saw your post. Said Grandma told everyone I had other plans with Dad's family. Do you believe her?" Emma shrugged. "Doesn't matter. She's not the one who turned me away." Richard joined us, already dressed for his shift. "The great Facebook war of 2024, he said, kissing my cheek. "Who's winning the truth?" I said. Finally. Mom made one last attempt that afternoon, showing up at my hospital during lunch. Security called to ask if they should let her up. I met her in the lobby instead, not wanting her anywhere near my workspace. She looked older somehow, smaller. Her face was blotchy from crying, her usually perfect hair uncombed. "You've ruined us," she said without preamble. "Everyone's calling." The church asked us to step down from committees. Frank's friends at the VFW won't talk to him. "Are you happy now?" "I'm not happy or unhappy," I said calmly. "I'm just done. Done paying, done being silent, done pretending we're a family when you couldn't even make room for my daughter at your table. It was one dinner, no, Mom. It was the last dinner. The one that showed me exactly where we stand. You made your choice. Now live with it. You're really going through with the eviction, 43 days left. I'd start packing." She stared at me like I was a stranger. Maybe I was. The daughter she'd known, the one who paid bills quietly, who accepted exclusion as the price of being different, who believed family meant something even when shown otherwise, that daughter was gone. "I'll never forgive you for this," she said. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for nothing. That's the point." I walked back to the elevator without looking back. Behind me, I heard her sharp intake of breath, the beginning of tears. But I didn't stop. Couldn't stop. The truth was out now. All of it laid bare for anyone who cared to look. They'd wanted to paint me as the villain in their story, fine. But I'd be damned if I'd let them write the ending. The law office of Brennan and Associates occupied the 3rd floor of a glass building in downtown Naperville. I'd chosen them specifically because they specialized in property disputes and had a reputation for not backing down. Given my family's scorched earth approach to conflict, I needed lawyers who wouldn't flinch. James Brennan himself handled my case. Mid-50s, silver-haired, with the kind of calm demeanor that probably served him well in court. He reviewed my documentation with the thoroughness of a surgeon, occasionally making notes on a yellow legal pad. "This is comprehensive," he said finally. "The paper trail is clear. Property in your name, all payments from your accounts, no rental agreement. Legally, they're month-to-month tenants at best. They'll fight it," I said. "Let them. Illinois law is clear. 60 days notice for month-to-month tenancy. You've provided that. They have no lease, no evidence of ownership, no financial investment in the property." He looked up. "They can make noise, but they can't change facts." 2 weeks later, they tried anyway. The countersuit arrived on a Tuesday, hand-delivered to my hospital by a process server who looked apologetic. Dad had found a lawyer, some strip mall attorney who probably took the case for a minimal retainer and the promise of a percentage if they won. Their claims were almost laughable. 1. Promissory estoppel, they'd been promised the house would be theirs forever. 2. Unjust enrichment, their improvements to the property increased its value. 3. Elder abuse, the eviction caused emotional and financial distress. 4. Intentional infliction of emotional distress, cutting off utilities, was cruel and unusual. Brennan actually chuckled when he read it. Improvements, do they have receipts? Contractors' permits. They planted tomatoes in the backyard once, I offered. Ah yes, the great tomato investment of 2019. That'll hold up. But while the legal claims were weak, the emotional warfare intensified. Mom started calling my colleagues, spinning tales of her ungrateful daughter who was throwing elderly parents onto the street. She showed up at Emma's school trying to convince the principal that I was unstable and shouldn't have custody. The principal, who'd known our family for years, politely but firmly asked her to leave. They contacted local news stations with their sob story. Successful doctor evicts. Own parents would make great headlines after all. One reporter actually called me for comment. I gave him Brennan's number and a folder of documentation. The story never ran. The court date was set for February 15th, 2 days before Valentine's Day, because of course it was. I prepared meticulously. Brennan coached me on what to expect, how to answer, how to remain calm even when they lied, because they would lie. That was certain. Remember, he said during our final prep session, judges see family dysfunction every day. They care about facts, not feelings. Let your parents be emotional. You be factual. The morning of the hearing, I dressed carefully. Conservative navy suit, minimal jewelry, hair pulled back. I looked like what I was, a professional woman who had her life together. Richard wanted to come, but I asked him to stay with Emma instead. This was my fight. The courthouse in Naperville was newer than the one in Chicago, all clean lines and metal detectors. I arrived early, found Brennan waiting in the lobby with coffee. Ready, he asked. 7 years ready. Mom and Dad arrived 15 minutes later with their lawyer, who looked exactly as I'd imagined, cheap suit, aggressive cologne, the desperate energy of someone who knew they were fighting uphill. Lisa was with them, of course, dressed like she was going to a nightclub rather than court. Mom had clearly been crying. Her face was puffy, eyes red-rimmed. Dad looked furious, jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle twitching. They didn't acknowledge me, sweeping past like I was furniture. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected. Judge Patricia Chen presiding, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and no patience for theatrics, according to Brennan. We took our places, them on one side, me on the other. The gulf between us felt continental. Their lawyer went first, painting a picture of devoted parents, pillars of the community, who'd been blindsided by their daughter's cruelty. He actually used the phrase, threw them out like garbage on Christmas, with a straight face. They believed this was their home, he argued. Made improvements, paid for maintenance, treated it as their primary residence for 7 years. To evict them now, in winter, without cause, is unconscionable. Judge Chen looked skeptical. What evidence do you have of these improvements and payments? Well, Your Honor, my clients maintained the property. Receipts, contractors, canceled checks. The records are incomplete. But Mr. Morrison can testify. I'm asking for documentation, counselor. Not testimony about documentation. Brennan stood smoothly. Your Honor, we have extensive documentation showing all payments, repairs, and maintenance were paid exclusively by Dr. Morrison. Exhibits A through F. He handed over the file. 7 years of my life reduced to paper, but paper that spoke truth. The judge reviewed it, eyebrows rising occasionally. Dr. Morrison, these mortgage payments, $2,400 monthly for 7 years. Yes, Your Honor. And the defendants contributed nothing, Your Honor. No rent, no utilities, no maintenance costs. I see. She turned to their lawyer. Does your client dispute these facts? He huddled with my parents, whispering furiously. Finally, my clients believed it was a gift, Your Honor. Family helping family. A gift, Judge Chen repeated flatly, of over $250,000, with no documentation, no gift tax filings, no written agreement. Families don't always, counselor. I've been doing this for 20 years. Families who gift houses get it in writing. Families who gift $250,000 mortgage payments get it in writing. What you're describing isn't a gift. It's an arrangement that Dr. Morrison has chosen to terminate. Then came the moment I'd been dreading. Their lawyer played his emotional card. Your Honor, on Christmas Eve. There was a misunderstanding about dinner arrangements. Dr. Morrison has blown this out of proportion, using it as an excuse to objection, Brennan said calmly. Relevance. Your Honor, their lawyer persisted. It speaks to motive. One family disagreement, and suddenly Judge Chen held up a hand. I'll allow it briefly. Their lawyer smiled, thinking he'd won something. Mrs. Patricia Morrison, please tell the court about Christmas Eve. Mom stood shakily, dabbing at her eyes with the tissue. We had a full house, Your Honor. Family from all over. There was some confusion about the table settings, and my granddaughter felt excluded. It was a misunderstanding. We love Emma dearly. How many people were at your home that evening? Judge Chen asked. Mom hesitated. I don't recall exactly 28, I said quietly. Dr. Morrison, you'll have your turn, the judge warned, but her eyes stayed on my mother. Mrs. Morrison, does 28 sound accurate? Possibly, Your Honor. And your granddaughter was turned away because there was no room. It wasn't like that, was she? Or was she not told there was no room for her at your table? Mom's face crumbled. There were so many people. Yes or no, Mrs. Morrison? A long pause, then barely audible. Yes. The courtroom was silent. Judge Chen made a note, her face unreadable. When it was my turn, I kept it simple. Facts, not feelings, just like Brennan had coached. Yes, I bought the house. Yes, I paid all associated costs. No, there was never an agreement, it was theirs. Yes, I provided proper notice. No, I didn't cut utilities, I simply stopped paying for services in my name. Dr. Morrison, Judge Chen asked why now. After 7 years, why seek eviction now? I looked at my parents for the first time since entering the courtroom. Mom was crying silently. Dad stared at the table. Lisa glared daggers. Your Honor, for 7 years I believed I was helping my family. I believed that financial support, even if unacknowledged, was what family did. But when they had room for 28 people, including neighbors and distant relatives, but not my daughter, I realized I wasn't family to them. I was an ATM, and I choose not to be that anymore. I see. Judge Chen reviewed her notes. Anything else? Their lawyer made one last attempt, something about elderly parents and harsh winters and family obligations. Judge Chen let him finish, then rendered her decision. The law is clear. The property is owned solely by Dr. Catherine Morrison. No lease exists. No evidence of tenant improvements or payments has been provided. Proper notice was given. The eviction stands. She looked at my parents. You have 30 days remaining on your notice. I suggest you use them wisely. The gavel came down. It was over. Except it wasn't. Not for them. As we gathered our things, Dad finally spoke, his voice carrying across the courtroom. You're no daughter of mine. I paused at the door, looked back. I know, Dad. That's why we're here. Outside the courthouse, Brennan shook my hand. Clean victory. They might appeal, but they won't, I said. They can't afford to. He nodded. What will you do with the house? Sell it. Market's good right now. And them. I looked up at the February sky, gray and heavy with coming snow. Not my problem anymore. My phone buzzed. Emma texting. How did it go? It's over, I typed back. Come home. We're ordering pizza to celebrate. Celebrate what I thought for a moment, then typed freedom. Behind me, I heard Mom's wails echoing from the courthouse steps. Dad's angry voice. Lisa's shrill protests. The sound faded as I walked to my car, each step taking me further from their chaos and closer to peace. They'd wanted a judge to make me be the daughter they thought I should be, endlessly giving, never questioning, always available. Instead, the law confirmed what I'd finally learned. Being family isn't an obligation. It's a choice. And they'd made theirs on Christmas Eve. March arrived like a lamb in Chicago, unexpectedly mild, with hints of spring threading through the gray. I stood in the empty house in Naperville, sunlight streaming through windows I'd paid to replace 3 years ago. The rooms echoed with each footstep, hollow now, without their furniture, their clutter, their constant need. They'd left 2 weeks ago. Not quietly, that wasn't their style. The neighbors reported shouting, crying, a U-Haul loaded haphazardly with boxes labeled in Mom's careful script. Lisa had to rent the truck, of course. One last expense they couldn't cover themselves. Place looks bigger empty, Richard said, joining me in what had been the living room. He carried a folder thick with paperwork, inspection reports, realtor agreements, staging recommendations. It looks free, I corrected. We walked through each room, noting repairs needed for sale. The carpet in the hallway was stained coffee, maybe wine. The guest bathroom needed new fixtures. Minor things, cosmetic mostly. Nothing like the constant crisis management of the past 7 years. In what had been their bedroom, I found a photo tucked behind the dresser they'd abandoned. My medical school graduation. I was beaming in my cap and gown, Emma, just 9 years old, on my hip, Richard's arm around us both. I didn't remember them taking this photo. Didn't remember them being there at all, actually. I left it on the floor. The realtor, a sharp woman named Joyce, who'd been recommended by a colleague, arrived at noon. She walked through with professional efficiency, making notes on her tablet. "Great bones," she said. "Good neighborhood. Schools are excellent. With some minor updates and staging, I'd list at $425,000. How quickly in this market, with proper pricing, you'll have multiple offers within a week." I signed the listing agreement on the kitchen counter where I'd once signed checks for their groceries, their medications, their emergencies. The irony wasn't lost on me. 2 days later, Emma and I were making dinner when my phone rang. Unknown number, but local. "Hello, Kate." The voice was familiar but tentative. "It's Aunt Helen." I almost hung up. "Then yes, I'm not calling to lecture or guilt you. I wanted you to know they're staying with Lisa. It's not going well. That's not my concern anymore, Helen. I know it's not." But I thought she paused. "I'm sorry. For all of it. For not speaking up sooner. For letting them treat you like that for so long. You deserved better. Emma deserved better." I leaned against the counter, watching Emma chop vegetables with careful precision. "Thank you for saying that. I mean it. And Kate, the family knows the truth now. All of it. Not everyone agrees with your choice, but everyone knows why you made it." After I hung up, Emma looked at me questioningly. "You okay getting there?" I said honestly. "The house sold in 5 days. Bidding war between 3 families, all drawn to the same things, location, schools, that finished basement Dad had used as his man cave. Final price $447,000. Clean profit after the mortgage payoff." I put aside money for Emma's college fund, made a donation to the local women's shelter, and kept the rest as a start on the life I should have been building all along. The closing was scheduled for April 15th, tax day. The universe had a sense of humor. I heard about my parents through the gossip network that thrives in small communities. Lisa had kicked them out after a month, something about Dad criticizing her parenting and Mom rearranging her kitchen. They'd moved to a senior apartment complex in Aurora. 2 bedrooms, basic amenities, the kind of place that accepts housing vouchers. Emma saw them once by accident at Target. She was shopping for dorm supplies. She'd been accepted early admission to Northwestern, following in my footsteps, but on her own terms. They were in the pharmacy section, arguing over generic versus name-brand medications. "Did they see you?" I asked when she told me. "Yeah." Grandma started to walk over, but Grandpa pulled her away. He looked. She searched for words. Smaller, older. "How did that make you feel?" she considered. "Sad, I guess. But not guilty. Just sad that it had to be this way." "Me too, baby. Me too." The closing went smoothly. I signed papers in the same conference room where I'd once signed my life away to their needs. Joyce handed me a check, shook my hand, wished me well. The new owners were a young family doctor and teacher twin boys. They loved the yard, the basement, the potential. "It's perfect for hosting family gatherings," the woman gushed. "Yes," I agreed. "It has the space for that." That evening, Richard, Emma, and I had dinner at our favorite restaurant. Nothing fancy, the Greek place where they knew our names and Emma's preference for extra tzatziki. We toasted with water and wine and Emma's Sprite. To new beginnings, Richard offered. To boundaries, Emma countered. To choosing ourselves, I added. We clinked glasses, and for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt light. Not happy exactly, but unburdened. Like I'd been carrying rocks in my pockets and had finally emptied them into the lake. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. This time, I didn't answer. A week later, a letter arrived. Mom's handwriting on the envelope, no return address. I held it for a long moment, then handed it to Emma. "Your call," she said. "But I vote fire." Richard grabbed the matches. "I vote wine first, then fire." I laughed, really laughed. Why not both? We made a ceremony of it. Wine for the adults, sparkling cider for Emma. The letter unopened, unread, unnecessary. Whatever words it contained, whatever guilt or anger or manipulation, they didn't matter anymore. I lit the match myself, watched the envelope curl and blacken in the fireplace. The past turning to ash while my present sat beside me, warm and real and chosen. "Any regrets?" Richard asked later as we cleaned up. I thought about it. Really considered the question. No. I regret that it came to this, but not the choice itself. They showed me who they were. I finally believed them. Spring shifted into summer. Emma graduated with honors, her grandparents notably absent from the ceremony. She didn't mention it, focused instead on friends and future. I watched her walk across that stage, confident, kind, unbroken by their rejection, and knew I'd made the right choice. The last I heard, they were still in Aurora, still complaining, still convinced they were victims of their ungrateful daughter. Maybe they'd never understand. Maybe they'd go to their graves believing I owed them everything while they owed me nothing. That was okay. Their understanding wasn't required for my peace. August brought Emma's move to college. We loaded her car with boxes and dreams, drove the familiar route to Evanston. As we unpacked her dorm room, she suddenly hugged me tight. "Thank you," she whispered, "for choosing me, for showing me I was worth choosing." "Always," I whispered back, "always and forever." Driving home with Richard, watching the Chicago skyline rise before us, I thought about family, about blood and choice and the space between them, about tables with no room and hearts with no warmth. They'd given me life, yes, but I'd given them 7 years and $250,000. The debt, if there ever was one, was paid in full. My phone rang. Unknown number. This time I didn't even look. I turned up the radio, reached for Richard's hand, and drove toward home, our home chosen and cherished, and ours. Behind us, the past grew smaller in the rearview mirror. Ahead, the future waited, bright and boundless and beautifully free.